underneath the anger, African American himself couldn't believe the kind of respect and support we were getting from African Americans who had joined the Republican cause in Brownsville, where the thought was it's only Democrats or people who aren't going to vote. We're changing people's minds by what we do, by having boots on the ground. I am the Republican populist candidate for mayor, and I represent the working class people like you, So then Joe Concannon and Phil Orenstein and many of you put on a great fundraiser at the Oasis campaign. It was amazing. We saw we had momentum in East Queens. And then Phil and Joe said, "You gotta get right on Hillside. You gotta get into that Burger King." I said, "But remember, I'm the McDonald's manager." He goes, "Yeah. But Burger King is the place we gotta be." Look at this magnificent headquarters. And all the work that went into it. With 21 days left, this is going to be open 24/7, 365. You don't see a Zoran Mandami effort out here. And Andrew Cuomo is invisible. We have to get out to vote. This is old-fashioned retail politics. We're going door to door. We're making calls. We're sending the texts. We're sending the emails. We're sending the letters. We have to get our vote out. Yeah, we can change the minds of those who haven't made up their minds, but we know there are a lot of Republicans out there who are going to vote for me.
Yes.
We know there are a lot of conservatives out there who are going to vote for me. Independents, there's 2.5 times the number of registered independents than there are Republicans. And they're up for grabs. And they generally have broken for me. And then we have moderate Democrats who are not at all happy with Andrew Cuomo, like a zombie come back from the political dead, nor Zoran Mandami, who's a socialist who has helped take over the Democratic Party. And so they come over to our side. And then the secret pathway to victory. You know, the best thing I've ever had happen to me in my life in 71 years is when I met Nancy, my wife. Who is dedicating her life to rescuing animals, like many of you right here, dogs and cats and other animals. And she went out there with our volunteers and got the signatures necessary to qualify the first ever independent line called Protect Animals. No kill shelters, animal abusers go to jail. So when you go into the voting booth, you will see Democratic candidate Zoran Mandami. He beat Cuomo's butt to get that first column. You will see Curtis Lee, a Republican candidate. Nobody challenged me in the Republican primary. In fact, Eric Adams had an opportunity to challenge me, did an initial poll, said it would be 72-28, and decided, you know what? I don't want to get another beating. I got a beating from the Democrats, and he's one and done. And if anybody had any qualms or complaints, time to have done something was in that Republican primary, but they chose not to. So when you think of the combined efforts of what we have, excellent placement on the ballot, then just a few lines away, the first independent line is not for Andrew Cuomo. You got to walk through a maze to find him and the other independent candidates. The independent Protect Animals line, because there are a lot of people, as you know, who never vote for a Republican. I know my father and mother, lifelong Democrats, they're no longer here. If they had been alive when I ran the first time in 2021, I would have had an independent line for them to vote for me. Because they swore they would never vote for a Republican. We grew up in households, blue-collar, working-class households of Democrats, in which I was told the Democrats are the party of the working class, and the Republicans are the party of the rich, the wealthy, and the country club members. That has been turned upside down and all around in the age of So now, we're on a mission. We have to save this city. Boy, there are a lot of people who don't want me on this mission. They don't want me on this mission. They've made it very well known. You listen to it on talk radio, you listen to it on talk TV. You try to marginalize me like they always do, Republicans, when we're running for office here in the city or the state. That's why with Republican pride, you have to burst forward with confidence and not be the Rodney Dangerfield of politics. Because too often our Republicans have suffered from that.
Yes.
They really truly believe that we can't win. They say it to themselves, we love Chris, but we can't win. Come on. Oh my God, they sound like it sounds so sad. We gotta get everybody pumped up. I remember these same feelings back when I first paired up with the greatest mayor that we ever had. If you're not a student of history, you're doomed to fail by making mistakes and not following what's happened before. When Rudy first ran against David Dinkins, remember David Dinkins beat Ed Koch in a very difficult Democratic primary for Ed Koch. Ed Koch lost and immediately endorsed David Dinkins. On the day before election, remember there was no early voting. Rudy Giuliani was 14 points down in the polls. 14 points down. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
He lost by 2 points. The polls were wrong then. Then 4 years later, Rudy Giuliani took on the cause once again of running for the Republican line against the incumbent David Dinkins, who was a complete catastrophe. And yet Rudy Giuliani won only this time by 2% of the point.
Wow.
So I was like his apprentice. Many of you remember, I would come out, I would warm up the crowds before Rudy and his wife at the time, Donna Hanover, and his 2 lovely children would come out on the stage. And we had to battle significant voting registration differences between the predominant number of Democrats, especially in an area like here, and Republicans. And yet we won in 1993.
Yay!
Now what happened in 1994? 1994, there was a person that you couldn't pick out of a lineup who was running against the better Cuomo. And I'm going to tell Andrew Cuomo in the debate, Andrew, I knew your father, Mario. You know Mario Cuomo. Mario Cuomo was on his way, potentially, to become the Democratic nominee for the presidency. He was running for a 4th term. The polls against George Pataki, who nobody knew. Nobody knew George Pataki. In fact, my very dear provided chief, Rudy Giuliani, went a little off on a tangent and endorsed, remember Mario Cuomo. I felt crestfallen. I felt like I wanted to impale myself. So I stood there with a man named George Pataki from Peekskill, Al D'Amato, the U.S. Senator, and myself. We supported George Pataki. On November 2nd, 2 days before Election Day. Again, no early voting. The polls said that Pataki would lose by 14 points. Now Mario was on his way to an unprecedented 4th term and possibly the future Democratic nominee to become the first Italian-American president. You remember that?
Yes.
On election night in 1994, the announcement was made George Pataki has won by 3%. The Republicans can't win a statewide election, they can't win a citywide election. And notice, from the chaos and corruption and the high crime before that, we ended up with no chaos, no corruption, and crime dropped to unprecedented level. 8 years of Rudy Giuliani, 12 years of George Pataki. You have a chance to do it all over again. This is 2025. The deck, they say, is stacked against me. Eric Adams, one and done. They wanted me to drop out for that crook who belongs in jail. So now they're claiming, well, you got to drop out for Andrew. You heard me speak. They offered me $10 million to drop out. That's right. My grandfather Fidel Biagino said, boy, that's a lot of scarro. That's a lot of food. $10 million, chauffeur, Jeeps, stretch limo, no-show job. Just so that I would get out of the race. And remember, I put everybody on blast. I warned them, look, I've gotten 7 calls from people I've known growing up who support Cuomo, which is fine. That's their choice. But I'll never forget that last call that I had my wife Nancy listen to. She's an attorney. And the guy said to me, oh, come on, Curtis, everybody has a price. What's your price? I guess they hadn't learned over all these years that you can't buy Curtis Lee. You can't not corruptible. But there's still people out there who think that. So I told them, the next time you call, you're going to have to bring this to law enforcement because this is not only unethical, this is a crime, this may be illegal. That's not it. Then what started after that was crazies. We're all stirred up to begin with because of Zoran Mandani. The Cuomo supporters didn't make it any easier by creating this image that it's doom and gloom, Sweepo must drop out. So now I'm getting threats against my life. Now you know I've had that many times. Shot 5 times with hollow point bullets in June 19th of 1992 on the orders of John Gotti Sr., the John Gotti Jr., and the Gambino crime family. Took a licking, came back kicking, and never had armed security in the following 12 years until John Gotti Jr. and his cohorts were indicted and we went to 4 trials. And then they did what I never thought they would do. They threatened the life of the best thing I have going in my whole life, my wife, Nancy. And that's when I said, Curtis, this isn't about me being a tough guy, because you know, you've seen me come many times, no security. I walk in here oftentimes by myself, and somebody maybe who came with me or drove me.
You're New York tough, we know that.
New York tough, but I don't have to say I'm tough like Andrew Cuomo and Zoran Mandani. What we need is a man who's compassionate, concerned, and caring. That's what we desperately need in this thing. But on that note, when I had to sit down and say, and I'm threatening my wife, Nancy. And this wasn't political, this wasn't from the billionaires, this is just from a lot of people out there who are out of their minds in rage and hate.
Right.
And they're already emotionally disturbed. And if there's something I understand, it's the streets of New York City.
Yes.
And so I made the determination that for the very first time, we would have armed security officers protecting myself and my wife, Nancy. Some of them retired NYPD officers. The stakes have never been higher. People ask me, well, you know, what about Andrew Cuomo and Zoran Mandani? They're 2 peas in a pod. They share the same values.
Yes.
The Democrats stood aside while the socialists took over their party.
That is true.
Bernie the Outlaw Sanders first in the 2016 election. He was never a Democrat, still isn't. AOC, all out crazy,
Not that one.
nobody knew who she was, but she beat Joe Crowley, who basically disappeared. Didn't fight for his congressional seat. He would have been where Hakeem Jeffries is now, on the cusp possibly of being the Speaker of the next House if the Democrats would have won the majority. And he lost all of that. Well, what people don't realize about the Democratic Socialists of America, they've been around for a long time. The #1 Democratic Socialist of America was David Dinkins. Oh yeah, I used to argue with Rudy, who had the Liberal Party line at that time. I said, Rudy, you're the one who says that David Dinkins is the limousine liberal, which he was. And then Rudy would say to me, well, he's even more to the left than the Liberal Party. He is a Democratic Socialist of America. Look it up. In New York City, who identified as the Democratic Socialist of America. And the other Democrats went to sleep. Remember 2019, D.A. Brown died.
Right.
There had to be a special election. involved somebody I knew very well, the mother of my two youngest sons, Melinda Katz, right? Perfect resume. She had been the assemblywoman. She had been the city councilwoman in Forest Hill. She was in charge of land use. She became the borough president. And you say to yourself, she should have won overwhelmingly against a woman named Tiffany Kahn,
Oh, my gosh.
who wasn't even an elected official at that time, but a proud member of the DSA, the mini-me of AOC.
Yeah.
You remember on the night of the election, Melinda Katz lost. She was shocked. I wasn't, because I had been in the streets. And you know who was organizing the vote for Tiffany Kahn against Melinda Katz? Zoran Mandel.
My goodness.
So they've been working this for a long time. It didn't just happen overnight. Some people, who's this Zoran Mandel? I've seen him in the streets. Melinda Katz won by 12 votes on the absentee ballots. There were 3,000. Can you imagine what would have happened to your beloved bedroom community of Queens if Tiffany Kahn had become the DA? Wow. That was in 2019. And they haven't slowed down since. And now they're hungry. You can tell they're hungry. They think they're on the cusp of a victory. But there's one person standing in their way, and it's not Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah.
Who failed to take out you get a second chance, Andrew. In fighting, we call it taking a dive. He took a dive.
Yeah.
And he wants a second chance. Okay, everybody's entitled to run. And now it's our turn. Because we are the party that is completely contrasted to the Democratic Socialists of America. Two big issues that affect all of you here in Eastern Queens. The city of yes. There's only one candidate against the city of yes. You're looking at him, Curtis Sliwa. I'm also a plaintiff on a lawsuit that's been filed by many of the civics groups, many of them here from Queens itself, to repeal the city of yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Zohan Mandel and Andrew Cuomo are for the city of yes because the developers have wine dined and pocket lined them. That'll give them the opportunity to come into your residential communities and take your homes and build 40-story skyscraper apartment buildings that will never be affordable with no parking and no money for the infrastructure. And it gives them the opportunity to bring lithium-ion battery warehouses into your residential communities, right next to schools, right next to homes. This is what Zoran Mandel and Andrew Cuomo were in favor of. I'm the only candidate opposed to it. This affects everybody in the outer boroughs, the Bronx. What you have to get the word out is, it's not just an election for Curtis Sliwa on the Republican line. We have to make sure that you go straight down the line. Republican borough president candidate, public advocate candidate, controller candidate, right on down the line, our judicial candidates.
Yes.
You can't be letting people play bingo. Oh, I'll vote for Cuomo. You think they're going to come back to the Republican line and finish out the ballot? No way. They couldn't care about the rest of the Republicans running. I have the responsibility to all these Republicans who put themselves on the line, who with your help went out to collect the signatures. I know how difficult that is to qualify candidates. You have done a yeoman's work. You've done the heavy lifting. Why would I abandon the Republican Party that made me their candidate? We cannot surrender. We cannot retreat. Now, what you must also do when you're out there campaigning for me and all the other Republicans, you must tell the voters, no matter who they are, when they flip the ballot over, the initiative and referendum.
No.
This is Eric Adams gone wild.
Wow.
This is the city of yes on steroids. It would eliminate the involvement of the city council person. No more zoning restrictions, no more community boards. I never forget, I was in 4th grade, Alan Copel's class, best teacher I ever had, PS 114 in Canarsie. And he told me that Robert Wagner, then the mayor before John Lindsay, created community boards so that they can actually give power to the community. like with civics organizations that my father Chester taught me about, that actually was started before the turn of the century in Chicago, which is where he's from. They want to destroy all that. They don't want civics groups. They don't want community boards. They want an easy pass to take over your neighborhood.
Right.
And I am the only candidate that can stop them on day 1, January 1st, 2026. Get out there to get the vote, you must tell everybody, flip that ballot over and vote no.
No, all of them.
A lot of people say, Curtis, how are you going to work with the Democratic-controlled city council? A lot of progressives, a lot of liberals, a lot of DSA. Oh, yeah. Isn't this ironic that my only supporters on this, it's not only the Common Sense Council, led by Bob Holden and all the great Republicans in the Republican Party who are in the city council, but Adrian Adams and the Democrats are opposed and are voting no on the back of the initiative. So think of it. Curtis Sliwa, in agreement with all these Democratic council people for the best interest of our neighborhoods. You see, there are times that we're going to agree to disagree, and other times that we have to agree for the best interest of our city. Now, 21 days left.
That's good.
We have no time to spare. I know some of you have been making phone calls. Some of you have been going door to door. Some of you have been getting the posters out. Some of you have been receiving the texts from our campaign that are coming fast and furiously. You received the mail. You've seen the commercials. The commercial that goes tomorrow is the one that's most personal.
Okay.
Why I am the law and order candidate. You know, my oldest son is Anthony. Anthony was the victim of a vicious gang assault in October of a year ago. You saw it on TV. On the ground, being kicked over and over and over by a gang. He could have been impaired. He could have died. To his credit, former Governor David Patterson, who is his stepfather now, stepped in. He's blind. And he fought off the horde, and he was assaulted himself. And because of age, almost no cash bail. Nobody has been prosecuted for that yet. Wow. And remember, Alvin Bragg knows personally David Patterson. So it's affected me personally. And you know, something affects you personally. As we saw last week at J Street Borough Hall at Metro Tech. A man from Bond, which is where my mother is from, Francesca, Andre, is just standing there trying to take a subway like so many others. When a crazed maniac came up to him at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We're not talking 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and stomped him 15 times. And killed him. His wake is Friday. His burial is Saturday in Middle Village. Funeral mass is in Bay Ridge. I'll be attending all. Do we think any of our elected officials will be in attendance?
No.
Because they act as if it's a perception of crime and an avenue. Oh no, it's real. It's personal to me. I am the guardian of traditions in this campaign to keep those traditions alive. Our love of the flag, our love of country, our love of patriotism. Teaching the children in class. I have 3 sons who go to public school, all of whom have told me they're not teaching American history as they should. They don't teach about the attack on 9/11. They don't teach about the Holocaust. They don't teach about anti-Semitism. My youngest son, Hunter, who just entered Townsend, I sat down with him at a congratulatory dinner, and I said, Hunter, do they teach you current events? He said, no, Daddy. I said, the teacher says they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And civics, that we all grew up with. I remember in public school, I had mandatory civics. They don't teach civics. That's why people don't vote as they used to. Think back. Now finish on this note. The importance of the vote.
Yeah, I'm going to come back.
In the 1950s, when Phil Orenstein just about reached the half century, 90% of the registered voters in citywide elections voted. 90%. In the 1960s, when we were played by John Lindsay, 2 terms. I don't know how much he was. 80% of the registered voters showed up to vote. When Rudy Giuliani ran against David Dinkins the first time, 1989, 60% of the registered voters. The second time, there was even more interest. Only 57% of the voters bothered to show up or register. When I ran against Eric Adams the last time, and didn't I warn you he would be corrupt and we would have chaos? Only 24% of the registered voters showed up. You know what the difference is? We were trained in school, no matter what school you went to, whether you went to public school, parochial school, religious school, that people died in battle for us to enjoy freedom of speech and the right to vote. That's correct. You gotta make our Republicans feel guilty. I'll never forget my cousin Leonard had to go away for 2 years. My uncle Vincenz, who was the oldest brother of my mother Francesca, she was the youngest of 13, didn't know how to tell her that her beloved nephew was going upstate to make license plates for 2 years. So he was a cat-down, a Pinocchio. He told, Francesca, Lenny's got a great job as a blackjack dealer in Las Vegas. He's doing very well. Lenny returns, did him good. He straightened up. They taught him upholstery. He ended up having an upholstery business. But on the day of the vote, Lenny was hiding from my grandfather, Fidel Bianchino, my grandmother, Nicoletta Bianchino, my father, Chester, merchant seaman, 50 years, and my mother. They would get dressed up. Remember, it was only one day to vote. The night before, they would have their Sunday best on. They would have waited a month of Sundays to vote. The old iron horse machine, 11 machine. Much better than what we do now.
Yes.
So my mother said to me, Curtis, where's Lenny? How come he hasn't voted?
Thank you.
I had to break to another bad news. Lenny says to me, please, you gotta explain to your mother, she's so innocent. I don't know how to tell her that I was away for 2 years and now I no longer have the right to vote. I'm a complete felon. See how ashamed he was? He couldn't vote. We have to do that to our own Republicans. When I look at the voting rolls, incredibly massive numbers of Republicans don't vote. You know why they don't vote? They don't think they can win. There's a rocky range you feel in politics. Well, we can't win a citywide election. We can't win a statewide election. So they stay home, they don't vote. Now they come out every 4 years. And we saw how they came out for President Donald Trump, unprecedented numbers. But every other year they decide, it's not working. So I don't expect Democrats to revive them or independents. When Zoroasters knock on their door, that's not going to get them to vote. Almost not going to get them to vote. You're the only ones who can get them to vote. You have to let them know this. Before this city dissolves and the state dissolves, and we're at that point where we're moving into the abyss. We got to elect the real New Yorker mayor. Our Republican candidate, Curtis, you got to come out and vote. Because if we get a significant vote this year, which we can do, and we set it up for Congresswoman Elise Stefanik to take out.
Yeah! All right.
And 1993 and 1994 all over again. We saved New York City back then with Rudy and Pataki. We can save New York City and New York State with Sliwa and Stefanik. Minority of voters who will give us that edge so that I can do the work that you've entrusted me to do. Thank you. Please. Youth George will be out there every day with volunteers, morning, noon, and night. We can win this in 21 days. We just have to revive the Republicans. If necessary, carry them on your backs for early voting. Put them in your vans or cars. Tell them you'll never talk to them again. You'll never recognize them. There'll be people with no consequence. Because we're not running. We're not leaving. We're not escaping like the billionaires. We're fighting for what we know is right. Hang on, folks. Hang on. All right. Curtis is going to take a few questions. All right. So, who's that? Come on. Hey, folks. Listen up. He may have to do a quick interview. All right. And then he's going to come back in and he'll do questions. All right. So this is your opportunity. If you want questions, yes. So just please sit down. Sit down. You good? Okay. All right. Sit down, everybody. All right. If you've got a question, raise your hand. All right. There's a question right here.
I'm gonna put it the other one. Yeah, thank you. Okay, that would be very helpful.
Well, good news. They improved a lot today for where we're going to be positioned. And right in the middle. Downey to the left, Andrew Cuomo to the right. They're not going to be able to escape me because I'm going to be right in the middle. And I'll be school monitor. I'm going to go at both of them equally.
I know that you are a big supporter of the unvaccinated New York City workers who were fired illegally, and I know you said on the first day that I hope that you bring that up in debate, you know, because obviously Cuomo and Joe have no interest in working. There's not one with
chicken, get some more chicken for it. That's it.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I'm going to try to bring up. Because, you know, the moderators will try to shut me down. The two candidates will be told, don't look at Curtis. He's been on talk radio 35 years. He knows how to count punch. He lived with Ron Kuby, whose mommy was in county for 12 years, debating every morning. So if you were their advisors, former advisors on, do not engage Celina.
Stop
Look at the
eating.
camera. When he approaches you or talks to you, don't look at him. Then they're going to try to limit what I can actually throw into the mix, because all the moderators think that they're the reason there's a debate. They forget, all they're supposed to do is ask a question and eliminate themselves and let the candidates address it, if necessary, argue with one another. They'll try to shut me down. I'll try the best I can, but I will reiterate what you said. I was on the bridge when the unvaccinated came across the bridge in 2021 in the Eric Adams election. And my advisors told me at that time, don't march with them, it's going to cost you votes. Remember, we were coming right off the pulpit. I chose the principal position to be there with the unvaccinated. When I'm sworn in January 1st, 2026, what I will do is invite all of the dozens who lost their careers, lost their mortgages, lost their homes, lost their self-esteem, because remember, they were the essential workers during the lockdown and pandemic. Every night at 7 o'clock, we applauded them, we banged the pots and pans, they died, they were irrevocably harmed, and then all of a sudden, the dynamic duo, first de Blasio and then Eric Adams, made it personal. You'll do what I tell you to do or you're fired. I will invite them all on the stage with me. I will point out how the zeros, who were heroes, are now heroes again. If they wish to return, they will have their careers back. But even if they choose not to because they've been so damaged and they've moved on to other things, full back pay, full benefits.
Yes.
And we're going to create a hall of honor in City Hall so that their names will be up on a plaque in which we will say this had better never happen again.
Yes.
Return essential workers who lost their lives, many of whom are sick now to this day, into zeros from heroes. That's sustaining on New York City. And I'm going to make sure that's undone as Henry.
Yes.
Curtis, the biggest thing Mondami has going for him is people don't know who he is, and every time you see him, he's smiling. People look at that smile, and if you think about everybody you've ever seen with a smile, they can say basically whatever they want, and if they say it with a smile, you think you're all right. Do you think it's a sound strategy in these debates to try and rip the veil off that smile and get under this guy's skin so people can see who he really is?
Well, I think because he is so affable, he's always smiling, as you mentioned. If you remember the song by Sade, I remember I was in London organizing the Guardian Angels here in 1984, and I heard Sade, smooth operator. But it's clear that he's a student. He must have observed Barack Obama again and again, who's the ultimate smooth operator. He's copied him. So what you do in explaining, you say, okay, here you have Zoran Mandami. Most people don't really know him. You say Bill de Blasio on steroids, because everybody hated Bill de Blasio, but this could be left off the smoke the left in the room. So this guy is Bill de Blasio on steroids, because remember, Bill de Blasio only put in a half day. The other half of the time he was with his grifter wife Charlene on the back porch smoking Maui Wowie and Hindu Kush. He was stood on. This guy will put in 20 hours a day ruining our city. People will understand that. Oh, he's like Bill de Blasio on steroids. I hated Bill de Blasio. Then some people are going to say, well, who are you like, Curtis? Who would you define yourself? Rudy Giuliani 2.0. He was the best mayor that we ever had. You want to get the city back on track, you've got to be able to do what Rudy did, the heavy lifting. Public safety, quality of life, the key, affordability, and the cost of living. This is something that Rudy addressed when he beat David Dinkins and became the mayor.
Okay, what are you doing about cheating, possibilities of cheating by the Democrats? The overseas donation that Mandani gets from outside countries, people he's not supposed to.
Yeah, I actually brought that up with Maria Bartoloma 2 months ago on a morning program. I said, look at the dark money. And I was criticized for that. I was told, oh, show your cards. What do you mean dark money? I said, look, it's interesting that the Red Chinese are giving money to our politicians, both Democrats and Republicans. There are other foreign governments giving money. We saw that with Eric Adams from Turkey. I'm surprised that they didn't make him ambassador to Turkey, to Istanbul. He would have loved it there. But that needs to be fully investigated by the Department of Justice, because there obviously is dark money, that's what they call it, coming from overseas.
Go, sir.
Yes, Curtis, how do you intend to pin down Zohan in the debates? I mean, he never answers a question.
How do I plan on pinning down Zoran Mandami in this debate if he doesn't answer the question? Well, I got to deal with two of them. Andrew Cuomo is not going to answer questions either. So I got a lot of heavy lifting. I have a feeling at the end of 2 hours, and remember, the first hour is on network TV, the second hour is online. I'm going to end up with a double hernia trying to pick these guys up and get them to answer a question. But that's what my job is in the debate. Look, I've been doing talk radio 35 years. Yeah. If I haven't learned how to get my kids through ears after 35 years, I'll never learn.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, Mr. Curtis, I want to give thanks to you for coming out of the, wherever, the shadows, to come again to stand up for people, you know, like myself. because the other candidates, they haven't been saying anything about us, who they were saying were first frontline workers, essential workers. So I want to give you credit because Eric Adams, who continued to do exactly what Mr. Blasio was doing, didn't even address us to this day. He said we quit our jobs. We never got any employment. People thought we got our jobs back because many of those people in the mainstream media, they all supported the vaccine. So we tried to contact them, and none of them returned our call until recently when I saw you with Cheryl Wills, and those two, I say bastards, I'm not a cursor, but that's what Mandani and Cuomo are. Bastards, because they didn't have the guts to show up. I'm in St. Albans, and I was talking to my neighbor, Aura, to let her know we need to get some palm cards around. Yes. We need to get the words out, because when I speak to people that I'm now subbing in the schools, because they wouldn't let me come in unless I waive my rights, and I'm not going to do that. Don't do that. They've let us use off our TDA. Me, my husband, and my son. 3 in one home. Lost my sister 36 years to the police department as an accountant. And my mother. So these people had no heart. Didn't care about any of us. And we went to so many rallies in Albany, City Hall, all over the city to go and protest. And thanks to Michael Payne, Teachers for Choice, who pulled us all together in unity and with RFK. And now you. I'm just praying that the man who I came here in 1980, and I knew about your beret.
That's a good one.
Listen, you don't have to listen to nobody telling you to take your hat off. I heard you say, I never forgot where I came from. I'm from Jamaica. So listening to you, same values and principles, you keep it on, because Eric Adams, Bill de Blasio, who said no paycheck unless you take the COVID, or $500, or McDonald's. No! You see, politicians telling us what to do with our bodies. We're in a school and institution where we are not supposed to bully people. We're telling kids don't bully, yet they're the biggest bullies. No! So, I'm sorry. I'm out of breath now. I'm tired. But I'm thanking you because you have a heart. The others don't. They need to go back to the pit of H-E-double-L.
Thank you. In Southeast Queens, there was a candidates forum at Paisley Pond Park. It was packed with mostly African Americans. Gerard Mondami decided not to show. Andrew Cuomo, who had been in Southeast Queens earlier that day, decided not to show. I was the only mayoral candidate, remember, to show. And I think I was able to convince the audience
so at the
that not only
end, I will
am I
ask
a
you
true
that
New Yorker, but
George,
I
tell me who you
understand
are
their
and what is your
situation.
contribution,
So the
something
more
like that
I
in this
continue to
line.
do that with 21 days to go, the more minds we can change. And with your help,
No,
your help,
finish this.
again, our road to victory is we have to wake up the slumbering Republicans. They don't come out to vote in mayoral elections, and they don't come out to vote in gubernatorial elections. They're there. They haven't left. They're all active. And we know where they are, and we're calling them up. But in your neighborhoods, where you live, you know where they are too. You got to get them to the polls, and we can win this election.
Curtis isn't going anywhere, all right? We're gonna close out the program formally here, all right, with prayer and Phil, all right? And then Curtis will be here for bitches and you know, whatever interaction you want, all right? So just stand by.
Okay, let's thank Curtis Lewa. Close out the formal part of the program with a prayer.
No, yeah,
to remind
Another line
everybody,
is to-
before you leave,
Yeah.
everyone, don't
It's
leave
later than
without
the
taking 10 lawn signs
You're
with
good,
you.
you don't have to
For
check,
you
you're
and your
good.
neighbors, and a stack of pop cards like
And
this.
donate!
A whole box of pop cards. Here, we hand them out. There are donation forms on the tables in the back, and let's get to work. So we're gonna have our closing prayer, like Kathy Donahoe, president of the bring, former president of the Prince to life.
Thank you, Phil. It's very exciting. Dear Lord, thank you for a wonderful gathering. We call upon your infinite mercy. We know you are infinite. But we give your infinite mercy. We need mercy in our city. We need a candidate. We need a mayor that's going to protect all human life. We beg you to protect all the most vulnerable babies and their moms. We protect our veterans who, because of their actions, we have the freedom to gather. We have
Wash
the
my
freedom
hand
to
if you
vote.
just hold it like
Please
that.
don't let us take it for granted. Pray for Curtis. Shower him with your mercy, as we can wake up and your grace, because everything is a gift. Bring him to victory, so that when we wake up the day after Election Day, we can wake up victorious. We can dance in the streets. We can give those people who didn't get vaccinated, because no one can tell you what to do with their bodies. Give them their jobs back. Give them their dignity back. We pray that he will always protect the dignity of every woman and man in this room and throughout the city. If there's anyone I forgot, and whatever happens, dear God, please protect us. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, and there's still food available on the side.
Don't forget, everybody, we are open daily, noon to 9 p.m. All right? Sign up at the back. We will follow up with you if you have signed up. If you want to make a donation, donations can be handed to me. I'll take them and forward them to the campaign. Early voting starts on the 25th of October. We want everybody early voting. Everyone early voting. 25th of October.
Oh, no, nobody can help me. No, I'm saying this room's open, I'm over here. Can I just come in and help?
I didn't even give a speech.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, let's give out lawn signs and pop cards. Grab a bunch of
What?
Always smiling.
I'm an Orthodox priest.
I'd like to see you at the prayer.